This is the new Skoda Fabia. It introduces a new premium offering in the compact hatchback market. Now, I've already driven the 3-cylinder version that's available in Europe, but for now, Skoda Australia will only be offering this, the Monte Carlo range topper. Now, what I want to find out is, with turbo 4-cylinder power under its bonnet, is this a true hot hatch or just wearing a tracksuit? Let's start with the elephant in the room. The Skoda Fabia is a premium offering, but it comes with a premium price tag as well. $37,990, but that price is drive away and you do get a lot of kit for your cash. If I were to put that price into context, then you'd have to compare this car to its almost identical mechanical siblings, like the Audi A1 35 TFSI. Now, that car gets an identical powertrain, but it's more expensive without drive-away pricing. And then if you look to its other mechanical similar sibling, you'd have to look at the VW Polo. But that car is only available for about this price with a 3-cylinder engine. To go 4-cylinder turbo, you've got to go the GTI, and then that's more expensive than this car. So it actually has quite a good place in the market. Because this is the Monte Carlo, the range topper, it is absolutely laden with equipment. Everywhere I look, there's examples of good gear. And the centerpiece is this 9.2-inch touch screen in the middle here, full of loads of excellent technology, really good sharp graphics. It's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly, and I've got wireless charging. So we're already off to a good start with the equipment. Down here, I've got a 10.25-inch digital instrument cluster, which is very uncommon in this segment. And it's even customizable, so I've got different views. So I can have it full screen navigation, sportier dials, more simple speedometer and rev counter on the right. At the front, I've got bi-LED headlamps. Again, very uncommon in the compact hatchback segment. In the second row, it's actually quite a decent place to be. I sat back there earlier, and even though I'm 6'2", I've got adequate knee room, but there's other unique features like air vents, which is very unusual for a car like this. It's also got a little pocket to tuck your phone, a little device holder. Again, nice touches which are just in keeping with Skoda's simply clever philosophy. In the door, I've got a little umbrella, and in Europe, the version I borrowed out there had an ice scraper in the fuel cap. Lovely little touches that just make you realise you're in something a bit different, but also not different for the sake of it. And if you go even further back than those second row seats, you've got a 390-litre boot, which is even bigger than some cars in the next class up. So practically, there's actually quite a lot going for this car. It only looks small on the outside, but inside I feel like I've got way more space than you would normally get in a compact hatchback. And because it's small, you also get pretty decent fuel consumption to boot as well. Skoda claims 4.9 litres per 100 kilometres. That's really, really excellent by any car standards. The only thing that drags it back slightly perhaps is it only gets a 40-litre fuel tank. So even though it's not using much petrol, you will be topping up quite frequently. So already that initial quite hefty price is starting to come down a little bit with some good value features through and through. But let's return to that question I posed at the start. This car looks like a hot hatch, but does it perform like one? Under the bonnet is a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, as I said at the start, and it's got 1.5 litres of capacity, and that means it produces 110 kilowatts. Not class leading, you might argue, and you'd be right. But what it does do very well is 250 newton meters of torque. That is almost best in class. Skoda doesn't talk about exactly how quickly it'll do the 0 to 100 dash, but from spending a few hours with this car, I'd guess it's around about the 7.5 second mark. Perhaps the only car that could give this Fabia a bit of trouble when it comes to the performance stakes is the Hyundai i20N. That car is a seriously potent little machine, but it's only available as a manual, and this car feels infinitely more premium. And it has a DCT 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. That for a lot of people will mean the difference between an order winner and an order loser. I really like the gearbox, it does a decent job, but I have one criticism. No paddle shifters. If this car is trying to be a true sports performance car, that makes a big difference. And you can't have it as a manual, so it's 7-speed DCT only. 110 kilowatts, 250 newton meters, perhaps you're still not convinced. Well, the Fabia weighs just 1,270 kilos, which means it's light, and that power translates into actually pretty respectable performance. The torque is where this car makes its pace. You can rev it out to its 6,000 RPM redline, but honestly it makes more sense keeping it around the mid-range of the revs and enjoying that wave of torque. And that also means the engine's not working too hard, so fuel consumption is going to be a little bit up the way I'm driving today, but not terrible. Acceleration and performance is surprisingly good, and this car is stacking up as actually quite a good driver's machine. But then you find some bends and it makes even more sense. I can see why Skoda base a very successful R5 rally car on this chassis, because it has got so much bandwidth. 18-inch alloy wheels with low profile tyres, finding plenty of grip in these corners. The steering is just like anything in the Volkswagen group, particularly in their small hatchbacks. Light in the hand, but tons of feedback. And the balance end to end of this car is just lovely. You can tip it into a corner and feel, with a little bit of braking, the tail just getting light, not too much to get into any trouble, but it changes direction so lovely. You can tell it's only just under 1,300 kilos. And there's not too much body roll, but when you're out on the road cruising, it translates to really nice ride comfort as well. And while I was bemoaning not having paddle shifters before, when you get stuck into these corners, having one less thing to worry about is actually great. Climbing up some of these hills, there's more than enough to have an absolute hoot at the wheel of the Fabia. The torque, of course, is what's so important for roads like this when you need a bit of hill climbing ability. And I'm not missing really anything in the way of power. 110 kilowatts is more than adequate, but it's those 250 newton meters of torque that make all the difference. So does this car deserve to be called a hot hatch? Well, certainly it has the performance in a straight line to do that. And then you find some corners, and I'm totally convinced it feels every bit like a hot hatch there as well, just with mini proportions. But then you come to the gearbox. No manual availability, and I don't have paddle shifters, which to me is just a little bit of a mark against its name. So while this isn't really a true full-blown hot hatch, I don't really want to call it a warm hatch. It doesn't deserve that. So how about we finish with a temperate hatch?